It is an auspicious moment for us to be celebrating the University of Toronto Centre for Criminology and Sociolegal Studies' 60th anniversary. 60 years certainly is a remarkable milestone for a university centre and an important moment for us to reflect on our past achievements as well as to chart the course for the future. I feel extremely privileged to have had the opportunity to join the centre over the past 3.5 years and to be assuming its leadership on the heels of this moment. But as Professor Bosworth notes, we're living in difficult times, and part of understanding must always be to devise alternative and better futures. Today, part of devising alternative and different futures involves considering what needs to happen and how. And what are our responsibilities as a public university? What learning and teaching and types of reflection, and what is it that a center like ours can and should do with the knowledge that we generate? Ultimately, how can we continue to mobilize our research findings to addressing wicked problems that are multi-pronged and have no singular solution? In considering this question as it relates to the future of our center and the mandate of public universities, over the past few weeks I've been reflecting on a debate that in one of my undergraduate classes that was concerned with what it takes to steer the arc of justice in times of crisis. It was an impressive conversation, in fact, filled with thought-provoking reflections among U of T students and from various academic majors. And let me give you a caricature of the debate, as you could probably imagine. So for one group of students, the arc of justice is in the law. This group of students argued that we've seen a profound advancement that particular landmark legal cases have had on shaping new possibilities. It presumes that law and legislative power produce the most effective template to ensure that the arc of justice moves toward ultimate progress. Now, for other students, addressing long-standing structural inequalities were more relevant for thinking about how to upend various roadblocks to achieving the arc of justice that moves toward equality for all. They considered the value of sociological knowledge for explaining how socioeconomic disparities and systemic discrimination actually created barriers to justice, and therefore addressing these issues was essential to bending the arc of justice in the right direction. For another group, different sociological or sociocultural modes of communicating and rectifying justice was possible through fiction, through films, through proverbs, through storytelling, as in many ways they were seen as tools for inspiring social change. The thinking there was that once we step out of the text-centric orientation of the law or of history or of policy or of legislation, and consider the ways that visual images, soundscapes, and artistic representations offer alternate modes of meaning-making, there are new possibilities for actually shifting public opinion through fostering empathy. Now, a final student who was less confident about solutions to justice questioned and far less articulate and firm in his position, but certainly singular, questioned whether the arc of justice was even possible to achieve, given one person's justice could be another person's injustice. It was this less self-assured contribution that offered the light that sparked a debate about justice, not as the destination, as we saw in legal policy with some group of students or in cultural approaches, etc. So not a destination, but actually implemented through tools, but as a process of learning, of listening, of negotiation, and of deliberation. And so this idea of the arc of justice as a space for constant reflection and transformation offers us food for thought in these times, and in light of Professor Bosworth's talk. And it's within these spaces of reflection and the importance of this center that thinking through critical tools and the greater good we see that the arc is not progressive and linear, but in fact it's rhizomatic, it's deliberate. It's something we earn through negotiation and hard work. With the gift of the Edwards lecture this evening and the importance of locating the arc of justice in nimble and complex processes of negotiation and of deliberation, in this closing reflection, I'd like to end by offering us some thoughts about future strategic areas for CrimSL in moving toward and negotiating the arc of justice. And so, of course, the field of criminology and sociolegal studies has certainly come a long way since its inception. And in other ways, of course, there's still a lot of work to be done, as we saw in the lecture today. Over the years, here at U of T, CrimSL has been committed to teaching students to produce knowledge frameworks for critical thinking and to develop tools for establishing the methods and representations that will frame our modes of understanding. And as a result, we've seen the significant role that scholarship and knowledge dissemination through public-facing reports can certainly play in shaping awareness, especially as it relates to policing, to prisons, to border politics, to indigenous dispossession, to urban governance, racism, inequality, and so forth. My hope is to ensure that we continue building on these strategic legacy areas of the past while also adapting and adopting new areas of learning and teaching. In this light, the work of the next 60 years will be even more important for asking how can we at CrimSL teach and devise informed understandings of a 21st century world? And then, of course, how can that knowledge be mobilized to do good in the world? In reflecting on the answer to these questions, there are a few priority areas that I'd like to share. And of course, these are works in progress and require necessary deliberation and engagement, and certainly force us to really think about the role of knowledge in public universities. Now, one area, issues of justice locally and globally. Now, this, of course, remains a critical area of a critical issue in our time, especially at this moment. And of course, one of the priorities in the coming year will be attuned to the role of knowledge dissemination in the public university. What do we owe our publics? And how might the knowledge we produce contribute to the demands of contemporary social change? Another priority area involves taking seriously new modes of teaching and learning that are needed in the global university today. And of course, this includes multimodality and multimodal forms of learning. We learn differently, we learn at different paces, etc. But also new modes for engaging with different histories and difficult archives that aren't even rendered legible because we don't see them and render them as legible, as modes of theory, as relevant for the ways in which we even think about the archive itself. Big data, also an important area to think nimbly about at what time macro and meta analysis of data are significant for showing mass trends, and at what times do we need microdata? Do we need the minutiae to think about the ways people think and the complexities of that thought, and even the ontological differences in the way they think through those ideas? And then, of course, and then finally, in that context, the ability to take on new modes of learning and challenges posed by AI. And of course, this is probably one of our most critical areas of our time, and especially for teaching and learning, especially for measuring what we teach and what we learn, but also for thinking about ethical responsibility and the frameworks that are critical to put in place to ensure that we don't reinforce the very structural problems that create inequality in the first place. Another priority area continues to be concerned with thinking about violence, policing, and crime. Certainly questions about social regulation and the place of prisons in society continue to be another difficult area of our time, a topical area. And the center will continue to lead in these areas, I'm sure, as our students and our faculty are already doing significant and certainly leading edge work. I would expect that we'll continue with works of prisons and punishment, thinking about policing, security, reform among those who work on reform, migration and border issues, as well as law, socio-legal processes, incarceration, science, gender, sexuality, and the body. And so for years, we've also, through Criminological Highlights, a project responsible for consolidating some of the most important headlines of the day, documented some of that work quite significantly for policymakers, for judges, for lawyers, for the state. And under Audrey Macklin's leadership, the center has launched the development of a new research lab for the study of racism and forms of social inequality, to clarify the deep roots of inequality in our world, and to emerge with it domains for thinking complexly about the nature of contemporary 21st century problems. And so my hope is that CrimSL will continue to support these critical arenas, to launch collaborations also with indigenous communities and indigenous knowledge makers, to think about and work with community-based organizations who also have ways to engage survivors of mass atrocity, etc. These are important and new and critical domains for thinking about knowledge production in the 21st century. We have a lot to teach, but we have a lot to learn. And then finally, just a few words on participatory governance. The post-COVID lockdown period has really raised a whole set of new questions for us, and we've returned with a vengeance. And with that, also for us in CrimSL, is the upcoming move to our new building, at Woodworth College on St. George Street, and now our new date with groundbreaking in the winter is fall 2026. And so the slow-moving train is on its way, but of course, with it comes challenges. The success of the work, that the meetings, all of what came with negotiating a new space to expand has been now the success of moving and thinking and conceptualizing what does it mean to move in a new space, what do we do with these expansions. And my hope is that our rapidly growing center can adapt to the challenges brought about by our success and foster increasingly inclusive and participatory and transparent governance structures. And certainly one of my goals, and I know it's the aspiration and hope of my colleagues, we will work with our students, undergraduates and graduate students, to ensure systematic student representation in our various bodies. But all of that takes work as we've returned and as there are increasing demands on our time, but I'm sure there continue to be shared commitments to making this happen. And so to conclude, I'll end by saying that there's no doubt that we stand on the shoulders of the giants who have advanced our understandings of criminology and sociolegal studies in our world, John Edwards certainly notwithstanding. And yes, at this moment when wars rage, Syria, Ukraine, Israel, Palestine, Sudan, Myanmar, Colombia, and so forth, the challenges are greater than ever. But so too are the opportunities for us to teach, to learn, to listen, and to act. My hope is that through this 60th anniversary, and I was doing the math the other day and thinking, oh, the next 60th, okay, no, I don't want to be here at the next 60th. So my hope is that through this 60th anniversary, we'll recommit ourselves to the pursuit of knowledge in a way that enables us to understand some of the most challenging issues of our time. Thank you to all of you for bringing us here, John Edwards, to many of our alumni who are here and who have played a significant role in bringing us to this moment. And thank you for your dedication to the future of the field, and I look forward to working with you in the coming 5 years to plant the seeds for the next 50 years. Thank you.